This is Bobby Halton with Fire Engineering, and we are out in Joplin, Missouri still interviewing the command staff of the Joplin Fire Department. Chief Randall was kind enough to allow us to interview his folks today, and we've got his two training officers. We have Scott Cranford and Mike Redshaw, who are their training officers, and we're going to talk to them a little bit about what they went through that day and then how their training is going to be affected going forward and how they're going to manage these events in the future and some of the lessons learned that they can share with the rest of the fire service, because you went through, obviously it was the most significant tornado in the history of the United States with 159 as of today, I believe it is, or 156 confirmed fatalities.
158 yesterday.
158.
I'm not sure if they've updated it today yet or not.
We're at 158.
158, which is unbelievable in and of itself. And then the amount of destruction is incredible. And Mike was just talking about in the EOC, one of the things you were able to do with GIS. And one of the things we were talking about was, the reason it came up was we were talking about the before and after shots of the neighborhoods. What can you do with GIS now during these disasters that you learned at this event?
One of the things, the first time I got down in the EOC was they had created a large wall-size map utilizing satellite photography that showed the damage path. It was fresh enough and new enough, it was post-tornado, so we could actually see a map of the city with the overlays of the streets and where we had outlined what we thought was the path and overlaid everything so we could see where the damage was by a satellite view. And then they were even able to take that a step further whenever we were doing search patterns later in the days post-tornado, where it showed red for the heaviest, most significant damage, and then yellow for moderate damage, and various colors, so we could break it down into different grids and focus our resources and maximize where we were sending those resources.
Now, Mike, how long have you been on the job here?
Here in Joplin, I've been on for 8 years.
And is Joplin your first fire department, or did you come here?
Well, I was a volunteer prior to this, down a little town southwest of here called Purdy, Missouri.
Okay, Purdy, Missouri.
Yeah.
So you've got about
16 years between volunteer and here, and then some professional EMS before I got into the professional fire service.
So you ever think you'd ever see anything like this?
No, and I was there in 2003 when Pierce City got hit by the tornado, Pierce City, Carl Junction, when that outbreak occurred. And then the May 10th was 2008 or 2009 when the tornado F4 tracked from Pitcher all the way through Purdy, where my hometown is. But neither compared to anything like I saw coming into town for this.
Right, I saw Pitcher. I was at Pitcher, and then this is completely off the scale. Yeah. How long have you been the training chief?
For a little over a year now.
Okay. Best job in the fire service.
Yep, one of the best.
You know, don't ever tell the chiefs, but the guys who really affect change in the fire service, who can really change a fire department, that's the training. That's the training division.
Absolutely.
The bad side about training is whenever anything goes wrong, it's a training issue.
It's a training issue.
It's a training issue.
We hear that daily.
So Scott, how long have you been on?
Absolutely all of 2 months and a few days.
Oh my goodness.
So April 14th, I believe was my first day here at Joplin, Missouri. Just hired, fresh out of interview, and...
Now, where'd you come from?
I'd spent most of my career at Sny Valley Fire Protection District. District 78 square miles just east of Kansas City, about 28 miles from Kansas City. And I'd done a majority of my career there before I came to Southwest Missouri just a few years ago. And really, I crossed over from there to the chief part of doing things. Got my degree, education in place, about 17 years experience in, and
welcome to Missouri.
Talk about being baptized by fire.
Welcome to Joplin.
Yeah, absolutely.
How's it working out for you so far?
You know,
you couldn't. We're firefighters. This is where we want to be.
Exactly.
You know, no one wants to be home watching a fire on TV. You know, because you just end up cursing A shift or whoever's on.
Yeah.
You know, those guys aren't as good as us. If I was there, you know, that kind of stuff. But you know, you want to be where you're going to get good work and do good work.
I absolutely wouldn't have asked for a better crew or management or support from anyone else than this department. This community, it has really pulled through. and they continue to pull through. The support that we've received from everyone has been above and beyond what it is to be an American,
Yeah,
and I'm grateful.
You know, people say that we're not who we were back at baloney. America gets better every day.
Yeah.
You know, the greatest generation were the greatest generation in the 40s. I've got young sons in the military now. They're the greatest generation. I mean, every generation of Americans has exceeded, and we're going to continue to.
Yeah.
But
Just when you think, man, this country, I don't know what's happening to it. Something like this happens, and everybody steps up.
That's exactly
And
right.
they're right there for their brothers and sisters, our brothers and sisters in the fire service, and as well as the people of the community. And we've had people from New York, California, all corners of the country come here to help out in some way or means.
Any way they can.
Yeah,
They just
however
want to
they
help.
can.
So where were you, Mike, on Sunday night?
I was actually at home. I still live in Purdy, which is about 50 minutes to an hour away from here.
Okay.
And one of the guys gave me a phone call. I got a cell phone call. I had no idea the weather was even bad. It was nice and sunny at home. I was playing outside with my two boys.
Wow.
And he said, hey, I just heard Joplin got hit by a tornado. I was like, oh, okay. So I turned my radio on, was listening. And he called me back and said, I heard two of our stations got hit. Well, at that point, where I was starting to hear a little bit of the radio traffic, and texted Chief Perkins and Chief Randalls about, do I need to get up there or what's going on? Because where I live, even as a call-in chief, being an hour away, you know, is this something that's
Right.
major that I need to be there for?
Is it an
or
F-0?
it's going to be done by
Is
the
it-
time I
yeah,
get
is,
there?
is this broken windows and shingles
Exactly.
off roads, or is this?
Yeah.
So they just type back, y'all come.
I got a yes from Chief Randalls and a phone call from Chief Perkins saying, get up here and get whatever warm bodies you can. We've got 3 other guys that work here that live down by where I do, a couple in Purdy and a couple in Pierce City. So we made contact and headed up this way.
Now, are Purdy and Pierce City, they're on your mutual aid, so they probably sent folks as well, right?
Yes, yeah, the department's also sent people to assist.
Now, where did you get detailed once you got up here?
Once I got up here and checked in, I got first detailed to the area of 20th and Connecticut. As I came in, they were getting a report of a structure fire at 18th and St. Louis. Well, one of the mutual aid companies was here, and they weren't sure really how to get there. So I just walked in. There you go. Mike can get you there. So I grabbed one of the department vehicles and led them there. And that was one of those things. That's when I first realized the way we'd come into town trying to side skirt everything. We saw a tractor trailer rolled over and some debris. Like, okay, no big deal. But whenever I topped the hill about 16th and Connecticut and saw, I was like, oh my Lord, what just happened here?
And we've been talking to our folks out there in internet land about the fact that Joplin is rolling hills.
Yes.
And as you crest the hill coming into Joplin, about half mile, maybe a mile and a half into the city limits, you see it.
Yeah.
You know, and
It's all of a sudden, it's there.
it is there, and it
Or
takes.
it's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the view from St. Mary's might be the worst view of all. When you
Yeah.
stand in that church parking lot and you look to the west and you look to the east and you just go,
Yeah.
oh my God.
And and the pictures and the TV just do not do it justice.
No.
To stand in the middle of it and be able to look as far as the eye can see, east and west.
So
and-
you went right to fire duty.
Yeah, I went to right to fire duty, and kind of like we were talking before we're taping about the finding things, being disoriented. So all the landmarks are gone, and you don't realize until you're in the middle of it how much you rely on landmarks, like the green house there on the corner.
Sure.
Well, that's 18th Street, and finding it is, you know, one of the things we pride ourselves on here in Joplin is knowing our streets and knowing our addresses and how to find them. It took forever to find the intersection of 18th and St. Louis, let alone the time to get there, because everything was gone. There was no street signs. There was nothing marking, hey, this is St. Louis.
And everything is down to basically street level. I mean, you can see forever. There's nothing really above
Right.
5 or 6 foot
Right.
survived it. I mean, as far as you can tell.
Yeah, you could tell that there was no structure fire by any means. Really, there was no structure there anymore.
It was all like debris fire.
It was just debris, and there wasn't even a fire. I don't know how the report came in, but we ended up getting freed up from that. And actually, one of the crews went to the grocery store there on 20th Street, the Dillon store, and ended up doing some rescues and pulling some people out of there. And I ended up with another crew doing some quick grid work and search work until I got reassigned and to come back down to the command center and get reassigned.
Well, you know, one of the things that the chief went over with us at Perkins, which I thought was fascinating, and I'd never thought of it. You know, there's so many things that are coming out in these interviews, which I think, as we go forward in our emergency management training, our disaster preparedness, that we're going to have to start considering. He said, you have to remember that if I had a fire, the possibility for that thing to spread exponentially was unbelievable because of all the debris on the ground is all flammable.
Right.
So, and it's all contiguous now. It's all just on the ground.
Yeah, you have a wildland fire from hell type situation.
Exactly.
Because it's heavy debris and it's going to burn hot and fat. But it's that same theory of I've got all this fuel on the ground.
I never thought. And then he told us about how all the little drains, all the house lines are cut, all the small business lines are cut, so the water pressure's gone because you've got 8,000 leaks.
Yeah.
I never thought of that. I mean, just the stuff that's coming out is like, oh, that's
even a 3/4 or 1 inch line. You pop thousands of them.
Thousands of them.
And sprinkler systems in places like Home Depot, Walmart.
All just
with
going.
Even the 4-inch mains coming out of those sprinkler systems. Yeah, it sucks a lot of water down pretty fast.
So you're rolling up and you got no hydrants now because
right.
the system's down.
Right.
The system's maxed. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So Scott, where were you and what was your first experience?
Well, we had just gotten moved into our new home in Webb City, just a little bit north of the border of Joplin city limits, and no TV, no radio, anything like that to warn us. So I just got done, sat down in the front yard, relaxing, and next thing you know, the sirens go off. Well, I've got my family and my 5 beautiful kids and all of them. Honey, get into the restroom. Get them into the restroom. It's a small space. They're in the bathtub, a bunch of towels. They're doing the best they can. I run and grab my radio, and like probably every firefighter, I ran outside to see if I could see anything. Yes, I'll admit that.
That's the classic.
It's the Midwest.
What's the Jeff Foxworthy deal? There's always some guy in hip waders walking through the water, and it's your cousin.
Yep.
There's always some firefighter out there going, where the heck is that?
Yep.
And that's what I noticed on the radio, listening to the radio. Turned on my handheld, and I'd heard the damage come across from Station 2. I heard the battalion chief ask if everyone was okay, and at that moment, I knew that this was a pretty significant event. And I went in, got dressed, and of course, while I'm getting dressed, everybody else says, please God, don't let the tornado hit with me half naked. I don't want anybody to ever have to go through that. And got dressed and started immediately towards the station. I kissed my babies goodbye, which was kind of emotional.
Yeah, I bet.
I'd never actually seen a tornado real life up close, but from sitting outside, you could hear what started like beginning thunder, like the beginning of thunder, and it never quit. And my wife had stepped out for a second right before I got ready to leave, and I go, do you hear that? And she goes, yeah, it sounds like thunder. I go, Jess, but it hasn't stopped.
You just kept going, boom.
They're getting hit, and that's when the traffic came over the radio. She went back to the bathroom with the kids. I kissed them goodbye, and I started towards the station immediately. And and coming into the station from the north side, you could see just copious amounts of treetops, kind of chopped off at the top. Nothing too big or damaged or anything. And I got to Station 1, and I saw Chief Perkins standing upstairs. Chief, where do you want me? He goes, I need you downstairs in the EOC center now. And so first thing I did was I went right downstairs. And again, I didn't see daylight for, I think, till the first time I saw you. And I didn't even recognize you. I thoroughly apologize
No,
for that.
No, that's quite all right.
But immediately.
I just so the viewers know what the Chief's talking about, we were at the Home Depot parking lot. It was about noon the next day, and he had just gotten out from being underground for 12 hours and was on a mission doing something, going from somewhere to somewhere, and we were going to grab him for a quick interview. And if you could have seen the look of focus in your eyes, it was like, unless you're a Sherman tank, you're not getting between this man and anything.
Firefighters are naturally task-oriented.
Oh, you were tasked.
Yeah,
you were
absolutely.
You were moving. You were on a beeline for your vehicle. And I thought, let this man pass. So So then from the EOC, where did you go?
Well, I went downstairs to the EOC, and they were just setting up everything. Battalion Chief Tim Woodward and Keith Stammer and all the rest of the wonderful staff were getting the room set up the way it needed to be. Tim sent me over, Battalion Chief of that shift that day, sent me over to dispatch. I walk into the dispatch center.
Let's
and I'm
send
looking,
the new guy to dispatch. Yeah.
This is a guy that has no, resident knowledge of the town, of exactly where things are supposed to be. But I'd been in dispatch a few times prior and saw what it was supposed to be like.
Right.
That was nothing like what it was supposed to be like. But what I saw was very organized dispatchers. I saw a firefighter at each station with each of the dispatchers taking complete notes, writing on note paper 1, 2, 10, 15, 20 calls per page. And they gathered them all up and they handed, here you go, Chief, because I was the only white shirt in the room. I go, what do you want me to do with this? So immediately I took that back over to my battalion chief, and we set up a sit-stat board and started prioritizing each call, if you can call it prioritizing, because you're talking just about every call.
There's so many critical calls.
Yeah.
You just start getting to them.
And I've got a couple of photos of the first boards that we wrote down. And we took photos of it because we didn't have anybody to do data entry on a computer.
Right. You want to capture that
Absolutely.
historical record.
Every single call that came out, we wanted to make sure that we documented thoroughly, and we knew that how important that process would be later on.
Well, you all did such an amazing job. When you know, and we've said it over and over again, but when you think of how fast this department really triaged and then did the primary in this entire community, really before the sun set. I mean, at least before the sun came up the next day, you guys had been over this land at least once thoroughly, because we got here within 12, 14 hours, and it was marked. The primaries were done, and you were already moving to really secondary searches and void searches, which is amazing when you look at the size of this event. Yeah. Just amazing.
Just the width of it and the length of the track.
And the complexity.
It's not just a little small town.
No, and it's multiple-story homes and single-story homes, and it's school buildings and it's church buildings and
apartment complexes.
And it was 5 o'clock at night, so people are on a Sunday, so people are literally everywhere.
Right.
It's not like like right now Tuesday afternoon. The school, you can predict where people might be, but on Sunday evening, there's so much going on, and you really did such a great job. I mean, you really did. So. You're out of the EOC now. You're out in the street working as a chief again.
I got assigned to so many different things throughout the next few days, as well as Chief Redshaw, and which was a remarkable experience for both of us to gather at the same time. Basically, throughout the entire next few days, I don't think that we got but maybe an hour or 2 hours of sleep. We were up that long. We got rest upstairs on the floor of our training room office, back in the weight room, whatever we had to do to get rest for short periods of time and make things happen. Past that, I thought that Chief Randalls, I thought that Chief Perkins, our Deputy Chief of Operations, did an outstanding job.
Oh, unbelievable.
For Chief to have lost his house and deal with what was going on on a personal note, and then also to do an entire assessment of a town, come back an hour later into the EOC and give an assessment of where the damage paths were, which gave all of us a picture of where everything was. Our mapping could then, from there, work on a grid system. We could start getting coordinated rescue operations out to the most hard-hit areas, and from that point, we called out as many search and rescue teams, urban search and rescue teams as we can get on the way, dog teams, and just about every area mutual aid fire department that was available. And we kind of knew that anybody to the east of us was getting hit with the same storms.
Yeah, we got hit with this. I'm a Tulsa guy, so we got hit with the weather part of it, but we didn't get hit. I think you're the only ones that really got nailed with a tornado. I think up in the Kansas way, they got some tornado activity up there, but nothing like what y'all got hit with. Yeah. So So there you both are. You're doing all this. Then you come back as the dust settles, as they say, which I know it's still settling.
It's still settling.
It'll be settling for months for you all. But
Right.
and we really do appreciate taking time out of your day for us.
problem.
Thank you so much. But training-wise, what had you done beforehand? Because your folks, all the folks around here, handle themselves in such an exemplary way. What are the skill sets that you really think that men and women should always have? What we would routinely call the basics, but in order to cope with something like this.
On a training aspect, and that's one of the things we actually talked about in the days after the storm was, you can't train for something like this. If we'd have done even a tabletop of, hey, let's take a F5 tornado, wipe out a hospital and a track all through town, everybody looked at you and said, okay, let's do something realistic.
Right.
So, you can do your mass casualty training, which we've done. We've done command training and things like that. But to try to do a worst case scenario like this,
well, what you're saying.
Never prepare.
Well, and what you're saying is so true, because it's a true story. Came out of Oklahoma City that they were before the Oklahoma F5 hit.
Yeah.
They were going to do a training exercise, and somebody said, "Well, let's do an F5 tornado scenario." And somebody in the very room, a planning guy, a guy who gets paid to do this kind of stuff, says, "Nah, it's too unrealistic. It'll never happen." And now we've got Oklahoma City, and now we've got you guys with 2 F5s through the middle of it. I mean, an F5 in farm country is a big deal.
Right.
But when it goes through the middle of a heavily populated 50,000 person city, that's a big day. And I mean,
Yes, it is.
and it hit would you say that's your densest population for residential? Because that was pretty
realistically,
dense.
yeah, because when we talk about like the area of 20th and Connecticut, there's several 2-3 story apartment complexes.
Right.
And right behind Walmart that got hit, another set of apartment complexes.
And even down by St. Mary's, those neighborhoods are 30 and 40 years old, so they're on those older city lots.
Right.
They're a little closer than we build today.
Right. And, over by St. John, I mean, hit a hospital was densely populated and a nursing home and things like that. So, yeah, probably are more densely tighter, what you'd picture, probably suburban type housing where they're 100 foot from each other, but they're still pretty tight and compact as opposed to a small town where they're further away.
So what are some of the things that, and people are going to be picking your brains for years to come, so
yeah.
get used to it.
Yeah.
I'm just the first guy. We're not going to stop because no one's gone through what you've gone through. The Oklahoma City guys had a little different experience because as it cut the swath through, although it was horrific and a tremendous amount of damage, not nearly as comprehensive in terms of what happened here in Joplin. I mean, and what I mean by comprehensive, size-wise, Oklahoma City's got 1.5 million, 2 million people, and they've got I think they've got 600 or 700 firefighters. It's a big job. You guys have your 80 men and women, 50,000 people, and a third of your city's been torn asunder. So what are some of the training, because you're going to have to keep working out there, what are some of the training things you would want skill sets that firefighters should have for these kinds of events?
I think a lot of it goes down to the core basis of what we do with training. It's being able to work under incident management and being disciplined and working under that type of system. Everybody reports to somebody. The guys that need to take command, take command. Another aspect, and as we've listened to the radio traffic here and there, is having guys that know how to keep their cool. When Station 2 got hit, and you hear over the radio, I mean, I wouldn't have blamed the guys one bit if they sounded freaked out over the radio, but they weren't. It was simple, Battalion 1, be advised, Station 2 has extensive damage. We're out of service. And then called in that they were going to need heavy equipment to get out, and they're already pulling bags off the trucks. People have seen the video on the Weather Channel and things like that, where they're pulling equipment off the trucks, using their heads and getting into that gear that we know what we need to be doing. This is what's in front of us. This is what we need to do, even at the basic level. We're going to have injuries. We're not going to be able to handle the heavy stuff right now. Even being Joplin, we have a structural collapse team, but when you get hit, that structural collapse team's out the window.
Right.
We can't even use that right now.
It's having good, solid knowledge with your hand tools and.
Yeah. One of the things that I put it's even on a quote on my bottom of my email is discipline thought, discipline people, discipline action. And those three core things, like what our guys showed and exemplified. You know, they were disciplined. They knew what they needed to do. They worked within the command structure. They did what they had to do and stayed within that. And then, you know, their thoughts. This is what we need to be doing, and focusing on what they need to do. And then their actions tied right in with everything. But those core values and doing what firemen do.
Right, like the Marine Corps, everybody's a rifleman.
Right, everybody's a rifleman, even the captains and all that, throwing rescue equipment on a beat-up pickup out in the parking lot because that's the only thing we can get free because this is our job.
You're still firefighters.
Yep. We're okay. We got to get this equipment out here to do this. Even though our truck's buried under the station, we can still improvise, adapt, and overcome because this is our job. This is what we've got to do. This is what we're trained to do. We can get the basic equipment to do it. Let's go do it.
Since I've been here for the last few months, and we've had two different academies, a driver academy and a new hire academy for people that we've brought on board. And one of the things in the interview process...
Before you go any further, what do they come to you with? In other words, what is someone, if someone's looking and say, hey, I'd like to be part of that Joplin Fire Department, because you're going to have a lot of people wanting to come here after seeing how squared away you are.
We require a minimum of EMT and firefighter, IFSAC Firefighter 1 and 2 certification.
Good.
And then we have, of course, a testing process and all that. And then beyond that, to test for driver, they have to have a minimum of 6 months on, and we put them through an academy that's comparable. It integrates a lot of the pumping apparatus driver operator curriculum, and they can actually test when they get done for that certification. But also we tie in a lot of what we want them to know. We
local rules.
Yeah, our aerials, how we pump, and things like that.
And advanced basics, if you will,
yeah.
Like polishing what they should already know prior to, and doing that, it kind of empowers the new hire. It empowers a sense of self-pride and respect.
So they feel like a system, that they're in the system before they get into the system.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you were saying you've been through 2 academies.
Two different academies here, both the driver and the new hire academy, and top quality candidates. They select the best through a good process. From there, they have candidates who are willing to go through what they're taught, kind of put aside things that they knew in the past, and open their minds to new techniques, the way they have done things here, introduce them to a good culture. And from what I've known and seen here so far, this is probably one of the best cultures, at least in the Southwest Missouri part when it comes to a fire department. That's no insult to any other fire department, but I like to see a department that's has got it together, and I like to see a good command structure. You have firefighters that are willing to pick up the dishes even though the chiefs fight with them not to do it. You have firefighters who open the door for the public. Customer service is #1, and you're going to see it here. You're going to see the professionalism, and I wouldn't doubt it if every firefighter walked out that door with a sense of, hey, I belong to something good, and I'm doing something good for the citizens of Joplin. And they know it's their job. But, personally, I'd like to thank them.
Good.
And I'm glad to be a part of this department.
You just did. We'll make sure that stays.
Thank you.
Don't edit that out, guys. That's,
Yeah.
that's important. So, what's some of the training that you want to recommend? They haven't seen what you've seen. What are some of the things now? You're doing heavy rescue. What are you going to do it differently? How are you going to improve it? How are you going to add? What are you going to add to it? What are you guys thinking you'd like to do with your new hires? And
real quick, you're going to laugh at this one. July of 2011 was supposed to be mass casualty incident training for this month.
For our EMS CEs.
And he planned this back in...
I think we can write you off on that.
Yeah.
I think we've hit that one.
Yeah, you've covered that.
Yeah. Maintaining what we've been doing is a big thing. This program, this is something Chief Perkins has set up years ago and is tweaked and tweaked. And when I came in, I got the opportunity to jump in with Chief Perkins and start adding my ideas.
Now, was he a training chief also? Or?
Yeah, he was until,
When you took
March or so?
About 8 months ago? 6, 8 months ago?
Yeah, if that even. He recently got promoted. He's been doing the job of deputy chief since probably December or so. But But yeah, when he got promoted to deputy chiefs, when we opened up the other training chiefs position and hired Chief Cranford.
You got the right
and now,
guys.
And now we get to tie his ideas in and take it the next step. But I really think focusing on kind of like our history wall, and this is one of the first things we do with our new hires is, this is the history of this department. You chose us. You know, we didn't come looking for you. We hired you. We want you. You chose us for a reason. Now understand the history of our department and why we do things. You know, not just, well, we use a triple layer load on our attack hose. Why do we use that? Why does that work for us? And even the history of the department, the little things.
Joplin thread.
Yeah, for 100. Yeah, the Joplin thread. Why do we have Joplin thread? You know, and for 130 years almost, since 1882, we've been here. We've been doing this. There's been somebody here. You're now a part of that, and this is what we expect of you. And the very first day is a lot of that. It's history. It's meeting with the chiefs. It's getting their expectations before we even start getting into how we do things. So, and then getting into this is what we expect of you. This is how, you know, discipline. This is how we work our ranks. Little things like every morning coming in, cleaning the station, making sure your truck's ready to go. Little things like that instill, I believe, a discipline. And the military's caught on to this for hundreds of years. Little things instill discipline, and disciplined people become disciplined, and the people around them become disciplined. And with that, they can gain knowledge. They're not, you know, sitting in a recliner all day. They're reading, you know, reading a fire engineering or whatever magazine may be available.
Read them all.
Yeah, the online, doing things like that. That's one of the things we still, be a student of the job. You can have the arguments about what a professional is, but when it comes right down to it, and this is what we tell them, a professional is a student of the job. When you look at doctors and lawyers and engineers, they're constantly having to learn their trade. This isn't a job you come in, you sit through a 4-week academy, and I get to cruise from here. And you have to constantly learn.
It's interesting you should say that too, Mike, because what we've discovered after extensive research that all the big things are made up of thousands of little things. Yeah, you know,
exactly.
Nothing's just suddenly a big thing. You know, like you went through the largest tornado, the most devastating tornado in the history of the United States, and your success was predicated on the fact that every single one of your people knew how to do everything right, and were focused and kept going from one task to the next to the next. Tell me how you handled the gas emergencies, because those must have been scary as heck.
Well, I could say from an EOC standpoint, we had a representative, which was Roger Harris from MGE, who also had showed up in the Emergency Operations Center. We talked with him. We set him up with a radio for direct communications with the center, and every emergency that was reported was relayed to him for him and his crews. But of course, they were overwhelmed immediately. Sure. Past that point, we had other crews working at mass casualty here, a multiple patient incident here, tracked victims. We literally also relied on some citizen rescue teams, CERT teams, citizen volunteers, to go out and double check, make sure there was an actual gas leak at that location, to confirm it. They got back with us by phone. You
basically had 8,000 emergencies simultaneously.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I got watching one of the interviews on somewhere, one of the guys talked about it. This wasn't one incident. This was 8,000. Each person had their incident. Every hurt person is another incident. Every house is another incident.
Right.
Every gas leak's an incident.
Every down telephone pole.
And you almost have to prioritize it. I mean, I hate to say the nice thing about the tornado coming through, while it knocked out and we had gas leaks everywhere, it also knocked out all the ignition sources.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, the major gas leaks that were a major concern, the gas company, we could prioritize it in the field and say, like at St. John's, when they had that major gas leak there, we need somebody here.
We found that one. We actually parked in that parking lot.
But,
we were part of that reporting system.
Yeah.
Yep, there's a gas leak here already.
Yeah,
and that was a big one.
Yeah, and if we could shut it off, we could shut it off out in the field.
Right.
If not, is this killing somebody? Is
Isolate.
it an immediate threat? If not, okay.
Right.
We can get to that later, and we could call in from the field to command and say, hey, I got a gas leak here, and these guys, I hate to see what it was down there, taking notes and things like that. You know, gas leak at 22, 23 Moffett or whatever it may be, boom, writing it down and having it organized. But we were able to do so, and then having that unified command, having all those representatives in there from Empire Electric and Missouri Gas Energy and the Missouri American Water and the fire department, police department, EMS, having everybody in there, you know, NIMS, as much as some of us may cuss it, has its purpose and the principles of it do work, especially that command system and being able to turn around.
I think you need to be as versed in it as you possibly
Yeah.
can. You need to be as eloquent in NIMS as you possibly can. I think we need to understand level 4 and 5s in the blue card system or whatever they're doing now. You know, I think that's a great system, and then everything builds on that. You know, and you have to understand that. And if you can't operate at a Type 1 incident, then you're really not any good to me.
Right.
You have to be able to operate at the 4s and 5s and the 1s and 2s just as well.
Yeah, even if you don't understand all the paperwork, as long as you understand that principle of it, that this is what I need to do to make this work, you can make it work.
Right.
Even if it's not exactly how they have it in the plan, we can make it work. Just like command, it may. There's paperwork to transfer this information.
And those type 1 team people are going to help you with that paperwork.
Exactly.
They're going to come in and they got the experts that can line you out there. But as long as you've got the basic parameters set up and you have seen the paperwork, you know, you've been through the courses and you know how it relates to it. Because getting logistics for an event this large, you know, after 24 hours, it's going to be daunting if you haven't prepared. And a presidential visit. Did you get to meet the president when he came in?
I did not. I was actually doing search operations.
You were still working, huh?
I was actually in charge of operations down at the EOC.
But that's important too. I mean, you know, he comes and people need to know that the boss knows what's going on.
Yeah, and they were very good about trying to make as minimal an impact on us as they could. Which was great.
What was amazing is we called from the very get-go, Keith Stammer. We knew we needed help right off the bat. We contacted FEMA, SEMA, Southwest Incident Support Team, and literally we had personnel there within 2 hours of the incident. We're talking logistics, planning, everything associated with what we need and our needs were set up. And the first thing they said, we're not here to take over. We're here to supplement and help anything that you need to get this
Only
done.
an idiot would have taken over.
And they got us anything we needed, and I will thank those guys till my dying day.
Now, did you as you look at your EOC now, and you've been through a super major event, you've earned the CE credits. Would you change the setup in any way? Have you looked at it and thought, well, this worked really well, this didn't work so well, like the annexes in the right place, or were the phones set up correctly and all that good stuff? Did it work the way you thought it was going to work?
I think it really did. I mean, for something of this magnitude, for something that our emergency management operator or director, Mr. Stammer, has done a good job of planning this, and I think it worked as well as you could hope it would work.
That's good.
It was literally right across the table, 3 feet away was Public Works, who had access to all the heavy equipment. Across the table to right in front of us was law enforcement. At any moment we had an issue of any sort, we could call, have them take care of that issue. We had Red Cross set up behind them, health, then we had also EMS behind us.
And I know for Joplin you have great communications, and you guys have great relationships, and with your 4 lack of a better term, sister cities, the folks in Branson and the folks in Springfield, and you 4 cities have created kind of a super plan there with hazmat and mass triage and all that good stuff, which is fantastic because those relationships, training's great, relationships are greater.
Right.
You know, knowing the guy to, hey, Tommy, you know, bring this or bring that, and y'all come play, we need you. Talk about the communications just for a second, if you will, because I know that we're still battling with that in the fire service. We're still struggling with my radio can't talk to your radio because I'm on this frequency or on that frequency.
And we did have some of that, and it helped that we have the ability to do crossband repeaters and do patches in our dispatch and all that stuff.
Did they bring in one of those? for the life of me, I forget what they're called, but they have a machine. They have basically a machine that can plug everybody in. You give them your radio. If you can get one of everybody's radios, they can make them all work.
I don't remember if we did or not. I don't remember seeing one.
They brought a command center out to the high school command post and set that up for a brief time.
It has a name. It has a...
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. You can just take the radio, pop it in there,
and it ties everybody together.
Yeah.
But, which is amazing technology.
Yeah.
You wonder why we can't just all have one of those.
Right.
You know,
right.
Next grand
Boy.
process, right?
Imagine that. Yeah. Which is getting harder and harder to come by.
Yeah.
So, are you going to do anything different with your training going forward, particularly for your guys? Because you two guys are you're it.
Our biggest thing that we need to do now is capture everything that we've done and
write that article for fire engineering.
There you go.
And capture everything that we have to get it on paper, get everyone's story, everyone what they were doing, similar to what you're doing with us here.
That's what we want.
And we're in the process of putting all that together, putting it on paper. We'd like to get it on record, and then from that point, we're going to be able to make accurate measurements, see where we need to be, see if there's any training gaps that we need to pursue.
Yeah,
you know,
we still have yet to have a chance to do an after-action review even on it, because life goes on, and it's one of those things. When it rains, it pours. After the tornado, we burnt a $40,000 square foot building. As soon as we arrived, fire through the roof. Wow. In the midst of that, we had to, literally in the middle of this fire, we had to break guys loose to go rescue a volunteer out of a well that fell into a well. We had a debris fire that burnt probably 2-3 houses worth of piled up debris.
Wow.
So we haven't even had the chance to slow down to do an after-action review yet.
Wow.
It just the hits keep on coming.
Well, you know what I saw while I was out there was watching the crews working with their hand tools, and we have structural, because that's what we are primarily, structural firefighters. But when you think about it, use of levers and pry bars and knowing how to make purchase points and how to use cribbing properly to get an advantage. I mean, I can see a whole new realm of familiarization about that. Like the San Francisco guys spend a huge amount of time in their training process about how to operate with levers and pulleys, and because they're in San Francisco and they know sooner or later they're going to have to do it by hand. And
that's one of the things we've been trying to instill on our new kids is that we start off really basic. Here's the tools we use, here's how to use them. By the time they get out, and one of the things that we stress to them is, you should understand the principles. You should understand that a halogen works this way, and this way, so that, we use a halogen to open a door, and we know how to do that, but at the same time, we can use those same principles in a structural collapse, just like you're talking about, using those basic hand tools, understand the concept of how those tools are used, and how can I take this tool and use it in this scenario. And it's those little bitty basic things, not just that, a halogen's just for opening a door. A halogen's a prying tool, it's a purchase point tool, things like that, and recognizing I can use this tool to do this. And it goes right down like we were talking earlier, going down to the very basic level and to, instilling into these guys these very basic things that here's the principle. It's not just pop it in there and twist. This is why this is doing this and breaking it down.
This is why you have to have your own knife and your own pliers and your own chalk and all the stuff that all your own rope and all the webbing, all the stuff that you put in your pockets. It's not there for show. It's there.
What can I use it for? And I've got this. This will do this. And by the end of their 4 weeks, when we really start putting them to the test, we start seeing some of that of, here's the task I got to do. Hey, I can use this and make this easier, or do it this way, or this and that. And we start seeing them think for themselves using those little bitty basic tools.
We saw your guys out there with their webbing, using their, they had their webbing over both their shoulders, and then another guy prying up, and it was great to see. It was really great to see. So what does Joplin need right now? What would help you guys out?
I think 2 new fire stations.
Actually 3. You've got one in the plans.
A training center.
Yeah.
Well, I know you need
That's a
iPads
tough
because
question.
the chief said they had more iPads out there. They could get training done easier electronically and some stuff like that. So hopefully the Apple Corporation is paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard question, really. I mean, you can think of things that would be great to have until somebody asks you.
Yeah, right. you want until somebody says,
But-
well, it's like when people say, what do you want for your birthday?
Yeah,
Nah, nothing.
yeah, nothing. Then you think after your birthday, you know what? I wish I'd have got
New
that.
bike would have been nice.
Yeah, because we talked the other day. That's part of those hits keep on coming. We had a fire at one of our big manufacturing plants, and it's something it just hit us in. It was a tractor trailer rig that caught fire at the loading docks. Thankfully, it's a General Mills plant, so it's a pretty big facility. Thankfully, they thought to shut the door, which kept the fire out of the building,
Wow.
but the ventilation end. And we're sitting there talking about, man, we use positive pressure here, even on our initial attacks, and trying to figure out, because we just recently, 3 months ago, I think it was.
How many fans you need for a General Mills plant?
Yeah, for the box stores and all that, because we've had fires at box stores, and this is a problem we run into.
Right. You
How
need
to
one of
do
those MVUs, those mobile ventilation
That's
units.
what popped up. Is like, you know what?
Exactly.
We could use one of those.
Oh, yeah.
And looking back at it, how many times we could have used one over the
You
past
know who's
even
doing a
5
lot of
years?
great work with those is Chicago.
Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of great work with the MVU, and a lot of other cities have used them. Dallas uses them.
Yeah. And
High-rise fires, you can pressurize those stairwells just
Right.
like that.
Yeah, and even they got the misting nozzles on it. One of the things we looked at is mass rehab.
Oh,
we're
yeah.
getting ready to have a 4th of July thing, and we're reaching those 100-degree temperatures, things like that.
I think
That oh my gosh, there's potential in things like that. Let's take this concept and what can we use this concept? And I think that's one of the things Joplin that I like to think we've always been good at is we can adapt things, adapt those principles, and make it work for what we need it to work for.
Well, I think that what I think, and for what it's worth, from watching what I saw out there day one, was that you've got squared away people, you've got great leadership, you've got an incredible community. People have asked me, having been here, you think Joplin, it's absolutely going to survive. I think that area of town is going to look somewhat different. You're never going to recapture that picturesque old 1940s and 50s neighborhood look.
Right.
It'll have more modern structures in it, but it's going to come back. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just too pretty a place. This is not a dagger through the heart of Joplin. This is too vibrant a community.
Right.
And a lot of folks don't really understand how vibrant Joplin is, because at night it's 50,000 people. We say 50,000, but in the daytime it's 200,000.
Yeah.
And you two guys both work here, but you live in the feeder cities, and Joplin has a tremendous importance to the Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri economies, and it's going to continue to. It's only 10 miles across the Oklahoma border, and Arkansas border is what, 30? It's not.
30, 40 maybe.
Yeah, it's nothing.
I always kind of like to joke, we're about an hour from everything. We're an hour from Springfield, we're an hour from Northwest Arkansas, maybe 2 hours from Tulsa and Kansas City.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we get a lot of those outside places coming. Even as a kid growing up an hour from here, we always went to Joplin. That was the closest big city to us, and we get a lot of that coming into this town.
And it's a beautiful city. It's it's absolutely a gorgeous city, and it still is. People need to know that too. Joplin is still a beautiful place to come and visit, and a third of it's been devastated, but I heard the Home Depot is just about back up.
When I went by it, just a couple days ago, they had the foundation cleaned off. Now, the Walgreens right in front of it is
Walgreens.
up. Yeah,
Walgreens is up.
Yeah, Walgreens up, and I wouldn't be surprised they're moving in shelves, today.
And that's amazing.
I didn't even, I forgot there was a Walgreens there.
It's right. It sits right in front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It probably hadn't been open 6 months. And the other day, I was like, holy
Well,
cow, there's a Walgreens
Well,
there.
that whole area is probably maybe 10 years old, right? I mean, that whole area, those new shopping centers up there, and the big sports place, and
Yeah, the Academy
Sports.
It's been built since I've been here, at least probably the last 3, 4, 5 years. Home Depot's pretty new.
Well, that's what we're talking about too. With you know, you talk about, usually you go to a collapse or something and it's one type of building. You guys went to everything from a type 1 to all the way to,
wow.
you know, 1930.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
you know, dealing with a different type, the tilt-up constructions like Home Depot, the block with long span truss like Walmart, the you know, the ordinary construction like a Walgreens, the residential construction. Yeah, we've
And
a little bit of everything.
wasn't anything that withstood the power
No,
of that wind in its path. It
Yeah.
took everything out.
yeah, anything directly in the path, nothing really held up well.
I'll tell you, you know, as a training publication and a FDIC and fire engineering, listening to you two guys talk reconfirms everything we believe, that the main interest in the fire service is training, because it's training that got you through May 22nd and 23rd and 24th. It wasn't, you know, dedication, which is important, and passion and all that other good stuff. It all falls back, and we laughed about this in the beginning, but it all's based on your training.
Right.
And you can never, there were some good friends of mine in the department, a buddy of mine who runs a department back east, said he was getting complaints from some of his guys because they were doing too much training.
Well, you can't.
Not in this profession.
No.
Not in this profession.
Because when you look at something like this, you've got the structure fires that we had to deal with. So you're using all that firefighter training. You're using your rescue training. You're using
Extrication
EMS training. Yeah, your extrication, your
You
rescue.
you were extricating people from cars that were
Yeah.
crushed in ways that nobody ever imagined.
Yeah, cars on top of cars. There were cars on top of roofs.
Wrapped around buildings.
Wrapped around
and-
trees. I mean, yeah, it was the ultimate, let's take everything we do, hazmat, fire, EMS, and rescue, and let's just throw the dice and throw it across town.
Right.
And you would have
And
thought
you use every little thing.
And you would have thought that someone or some of the firefighters and the crews would have been overwhelmed when they'd first stepped out and saw this, but not any of them. They went to each call, they went to each incident they were assigned to, they cleared it.
Oh, that's what we
in an
saw.
appropriate manner.
You're exactly right. The professionalism was unbelievable. Just the level of integrity and the level of just focus, dedication, and discipline. I mean, these people, it was the greatest example of, there's a great book out by a guy named Pete Blabber, who's a Delta Force guy, and it's called The Mission, the Men, and Me. And that's what you saw here. It was the mission. It was try to save as many people as we could save, try to restore as much order as we could restore, working for the citizens of Joplin.
Yeah.
Then it was taking care of the men, and that's what you two guys were doing and Chief Perkins was doing.
Yeah.
You know, that's what was going on there. And then it was about you.
Right.
You know, when you talk about your boss whose house is gone, his family's living in his office, and yet he's right there. Boom, boom, boom.
And what? And making sure, yeah, and it's little things you don't even realize till afterward.
And he's more concerned about you all
Yeah.
than
And
anything
it goes
else.
up, yeah, because you know we're out there making sure the guys get rest and realize Tuesday night, you know what? I haven't had a lick of sleep yet.
You guys
things
epitomized
like that.
the mission, the men, and then me, because it was truly there have been great moments in America that have been surrounded by tragedy, Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and now we have May 22nd in Joplin, where men and women like yourselves stepped up and said, my community needs me, and here I am.
Not something you ever want to have happen, but
No, but if you want to look at an example of American exceptionalism, like you said, there it was, you know, and it's going to continue to be, and that's why I think the downside for Joplin is you're going to, probably in 50 years, there'll be a lot more Joplin,
Yeah.
because people are going to want to come and live with this kind of people. People are going to want to be part of this kind of environment. This is the heart of America, and you guys were beaten strong, and you're still beaten strong. And you know, on behalf of all the firefighters out there, we're just so proud to have guys like you being such a shining example of what real professionalism is all about. And it doesn't mean if you're a career volunteer. Everybody out there was a real professional, and they came from all around. And we just wanted to thank you, and Mike, for taking time. We know how busy you are, and you got better things to do than jawbone with an old fireman, but we really appreciate it. We wanted to get your story out there. Scotty, you know, they couldn't have gotten a better guy in here. You fit right in. You wouldn't have known you weren't born and raised, because you're perfect for Joplin.
You know, they when I first came in, I don't know whether it's kind of a nickname type thing, and he's going to kill me for this. His last name's Redshaw, and I'm Cranford, right? So throughout the entire incident, they called us Cranshaw.
Cranshaw?
It's
The training twins.
I like it. You kind of look like bookends.
Yeah, one team.
You got the same follicle impairment going. You got
The guys are going to get me back on this one. I know it.
We'll leave
I'm
it.
gonna
We'll leave
get
that
you
in.
on
So we got the Cranshaw twins. We'll make sure we keep that in there. That's terrible.
I'm going to
That's
get you
terrible.
for that one.
Well, thanks again for spending some time with us. We sure do appreciate it. And you know, if there's anything we can do for you, please reach out and let us know what it is, and we'll make sure we get it out there to everybody. And hopefully we get to see you both at FDIC.
Hopefully.
We'd love to have you as our guest. So.